second Mana Cyclone.
So the question here is, when do you use a Sorcerer's Apprentice? The Sorcerer's Apprentice is a big draw because for what it means in future turns. I don't necessarily think Possessi has to go for it in this spot. I think he's going to, but he doesn't have to. So I'm curious about this situation right here. Without an invocation, the situation's not going to work.
Okay.
That's a nice one. Dynamatics are getting awfully scary, though. Unless you got a bunch of Ray of Frosts.
Yeah. I mean, this first one will draw a card.
If he draws Elemental Invocation here, we're looking at another full hand and probably board advantage. Oh, my.
Says he does hesitate. Something he does want to be mindful of is whether or not he's wasting these cards, but I think Mirror Image is just really good.
Now the Dynamatics are looking actually pretty darn awful. So that is a major concern for Gallon at that point. I would say his best draw has to be Warpath.
Yes. It's most certainly Warpath because he's not getting through without it. Unless he is able to control the outcome of his Dynamatic. And even then, he wouldn't be able to clear off everything. Last Master Boom getting drawn here for Gallon.
No bombs in the deck.
Mega Assembly to start things off here for Gallon.
So now for Gallon, it's probably going to be a transition of game plan where you move into a slower position and you try to take advantage of being able to simply eliminate all of Possessi's stuff. It's tough for Possessi to have explosive turns while he's got so many minions out, so Gallon does have time, I think, to get to that point. There's only one copy of Brawl, but there are 2 copies of Warpath in the deck, and you're looking at Blastmaster Boom already in hand. So I think he's got some tools to fight with here, but given the landscape change, it's probably advantage to Possessi right now.
It does seem that Possessi has all the resources that he'll need to close out the game. I think for Gallon, he's also contemplating, like, how does his hand adapt to the fact that he has Blastmaster Boom? Okay, he does end up killing one of these mirror images.
Yeah.
Sea Giant is still basically free.
This is Sea Giant Conjurer's turn for sure. What else do you do, though? That's the part that's hard, is I don't know what the rest of the turn looks like.
Yeah, does he only commit one Conjurer's Calling to this situation? Because I mean, he could hold on to the other one in case he draws a Mountain Giant.
I think it's likely that he ends up trading some board space here. So
he does have the opportunity to trade Luna and go for another Conjurer's Calling. Deathwing is one of the ideal ones, and this is still a significant amount of pressure already.
This is a lot.
And your opponent is most likely tempted to brawl this situation.
Yeah, however, Gallon, that's the card that Gallon's missing. And so talking about turns 7, 8, 9, Gallon has to survive 3 turns to bridge to a potential for Omega Devil. And with a wealth of Ray of Frost and an Archmage Antonidas, I think Possessi is pretty well shaped up to close this first game.
Yes, definitely Deathwing goes phase here.
This is a big ouchies.
Hang around TJ's baby a little too much, huh?
I'm just looking at 12 attack. Ouchies. 12, Dan, 12. There's only 16 left.
Well, he's going to Conjurer's Calling, maybe 2 more.
Oh.
Well, I mean...
That's so good. It's a 10-10.
Well, he gave, yeah.
10 is almost 12.
I mean, he went from 12 to 14 power. I think that's not really what Possessi truly wanted.
The thing about it is you split it with just extra health. Like, Gallon's never killing this.
Right.
He has to draw Brawl or the game ends.
Kind of wonder if, in a very weird way, having Mechathune out makes it easier for Gallon to target things with the Dynamatic, but I think 12 health is just too much to overcome.
I think Possessi is considering, you know, either hand dumping here or just also the trade on the Luna. I think the Luna trade has some merit due to Brawl, but you're also drawing an extra card for Gallon at that point. So the trade-off would be you have lethal pressure that lives more often in the case of Brawl, but at the same time you're also drawing Gallon in that situation. So I think Gallon's just probably done here. He has the Rush of the Eternium Rover, so he's going to stay alive for a turn. But can you imagine bridging turn 9 in this situation as well?
No. He already used Ziliax too, by the way. Remember he played it on 5 for Temple?
Yeah. I mean, he needs picture perfect next turn.
0 mana spell at the beginning of this turn.
And I think Possessi has a lot of ways to actually even mitigate that further. You know, the first thing I looked at was, could you banana pressure out? The answer to that is no. Just Gallon has too much life total. So how do you set up the cleanest way to close the game next turn, it's probably an Archmage Antonidas.
Yep, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, Possessy does have the opportunity to try to fish for lethal now with the Mana Cyclone.
You can also shred a draw away from Gallon that way. Polymorph.
Yeah. It's the most expensive spell and you get free.
Don't tell me there's not a way to make players discard cards. Draw suppression.
Yeah, this is one that was generated too.
Loatheb for draw. That's what I want.
So, it's going for the Archmage.
Pretty surprised about that. It makes a lot of sense because his main operation here is just to ensure 2 fireballs and at the same time make Brawl tougher.
Right. I don't mind it. Set your opponent down to 11, which means you have 13 damage through the fireballs and the hero power.
Gallon's done. Game 1 over to Possessy, who just, as soon as the Sea Giant came down, was able to just pretty much end the game. And that's really the kind of trouble that Gallon can find himself in, which is why he's included so much in a secondary deck to pinpoint this exact problem. I think if he's able to eliminate threats like one by one, because the way that the Warrior interpretation has been changed from a control deck to a mid-range pressure deck, oftentimes the tempo you get when your opponent is forced to play a Giant is irrecoverable. From Possessy's perspective, but at the same time, you have recovery options versus those kinds of turns where you just don't die immediately because your opponent gets to smack you with a Deathwing.
Yeah, that said, it's still a very difficult matchup. If the Mage continues to play well, I'm looking at cards like Twilight Drake to be the big MVP of the coming games in case he can't land the Giants down cleanly, because as a 4/9, as a 4/8, it's very difficult for the Warrior to deal with just with one card. They'll have to piece together other things.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to deal with it, let's say you even are able to present a reasonable amount of threat, that's also a card that's worthy of a candidate to be Conjurer Calling, and then or Conjuring Called, and then be able to build up pressure through a slew of 4-mana minions.
Yeah, so Gallon has moved over to the tertiary deck where you see 2 big game hunters and Brawl as Super Collider come in. Another Slam comes in as well. That's kind of a curious option. Probably just needed a flexible way to deal damage that doesn't take up too much of your mana. And then you take a look at what's removed. Harrison Jones, awful. Archivist Lysiana, awful. Omega Assembly, you saw how it was used. And Eternity and Rovers. I wouldn't call them useless in the matchup, but certainly not crucial to the matchup, where the other cards certainly can be. And so looking over at Possessy's deck, to counteract this exact style of thing, you just added heavier stuff. 2 Astromancers is usually more than enough to bring a big punch to this one. The Sea Giant's moving out. I mean, you saw what an impact Sea Giant had, but that's something that Gallon's looking to actively control in future scenarios. And when you expect Big Game Hunter to come in, what that means is you expect less overall pressure from the Turning Rovers being taken out. So Sea Giant a little bit weaker in those styles of instances. So just well thought out here for Possessy.
Well, we got information that Possessy's actually not switching. He's staying on his primary deck. He's not going to put the Twilight Drakes in. He's not putting the Astromancers in. He's not putting the Harrison in. He wants good old-fashioned Sea Giants. Whoa. He's willing to take on the big game hunters and super colliders.
That's kind of weird to me because he loses out on 2 Twilight Drakes, a Harrison Jones, and 2 Astromancers.
That's just a fantastic card against Warriors.
I actually wonder if that's a nod to the way that Gallon plays the game, and perhaps the tech choice specifically of Spellbreaker, where Spellbreaker can blow out a Twilight Drake sometimes. And at the same time, if you expect Gallon to play very aggressively and go wide, it means Sea Giant does have easier payoff potential. So I'm curious if that's part of the thought here for Possessy on not going to the secondary deck. That's very interesting to me.
Yep.
It's a bold call.
It's a bold call, given that you are bringing that deck list generally to beat the Warriors, but maybe against Gallon, like you said, it's his deck list, maybe it's his playstyle. Something is discouraging him from choosing his secondary deck with all those tech cards.
I'm actually just curious if it could have been the overall performance throughout the tournament. Like maybe as things progressed and they kept going, Possessy just kind of realized, I'm just not performing as well with this deck.
Right, maybe like he's stuck holding Astromancers and he's like the game has snowballed out of control before Astromancers are relevant.
The other thing too is Gallon doesn't know that. Possessy does not have to give that information to Gallon of which of his 3 decks he's using. The secondary and tertiary deck are going to be up to 5 cards different going into games 2 and 3, but the only way Gallon gets that information is if he sees something that changes that. The only thing right now he could see that changes that is basically top-end presence.
Yeah, the Celiacs and Sea Giants would be the big dead giveaways. I mean, the secondary deck also loses Frost Nova.